what I did, I noticed that this thing, led by different victims, saying that a lady by the name of Tracy Morrison is claiming to be an FBI official.
Miss Morrison has never been out of the country.
She hasn't.
Never. We obtained evidence from the Department of Home Affairs with her movement control.
Most definitely there's a psychological impact. You doubt yourself and you wonder how you could be so stupid, so ignorant, so easily duped.
They asked me in court, when I appeared in court, what caused the end of the friendship, and I said the day that she looked me in the eye and lied to me about stealing from my brother because I'm her best friend.
For over 3 decades, serial fraudster and liar Tracy Morrison had successfully evaded justice. But in 2018, after an exclusive special assignment investigation assisted by scores of her victims, she was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud. Yet a year later, in October 2019, she was acquitted on all charges.
I saw the list of dockets, but those dockets, Randburg Magistrate Court didn't prosecute her.
And soon after, she returned to a life of lies and crime. For Morrison, it was back to business as usual.
This is a professional con person who is excellent at their profession, probably has the best life training and experience at their profession that goes into decades.
She established a website called Madison Avenue Interiors, using the same letterheads and logos that she had used to set up her previous bogus companies. At the time, she was penniless. After years of betrayal, friends and family had disowned her. But just as she had for over 30 years of scams, she rapidly reinvented herself. I spoke to a court official who said he had taken pity on this poor old woman during the trial at the Randburg court in 2019. He requested anonymity.
After she got out, she paid me a visit, I think, 3 weeks later. She was looking super fancy, expensive sunglasses, expensive jewelry that says money. I mean, like, in 3 weeks, she had already bought Mercedes-Benz. She was then telling me that she's looking for a house in Sentin, something tasty. I was like, wow. I couldn't believe, like, it was jaw-dropping.
Well, we made inquiries, and of course Morrison didn't own the Mercedes she was driving. She was borrowing it, and she couldn't afford to purchase an upmarket house. But we did uncover 3 months' worth of her bank statements from the 23rd of December 2019, that was shortly after she was acquitted, until the end of March 2020. And during that time, a whopping 1.5 million rand at least was deposited into this account, not in one go, but in stages. And just as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. By the end of March, Morrison was broke yet again. One can only imagine by what means she managed to get and lose that much money over such a short time. This is the last address Tracy Morrison lived at, right up until the day she was sentenced to 6 years in prison. And typically, she chose Sandton again as her hunting ground. Equally typically, while she was awaiting sentencing, she continued to scam more victims, and we've managed to trace some of them. We are protecting the identity of this victim because she still fears Morrison.
I am shocked, absolutely shocked. I can't believe what you're telling me.
When did you first meet Tracy Morrison?
Sometime in 2020, she called herself Tracy Latham.
And did she ask you to get involved in any of her business deals?
Yes, she invited me and I invested over 50,000 Rand in a business. She was supposedly developing something with interior design. I never saw any returns.
What did she tell you about her personal life?
She said she was a widow with 3 children. Her husband was a policeman and he was shot and killed.
You do know that she was lying.
I don't know who this person is anymore. Except she scares the hell out of me.
Morrison's ability to con victims has been matched by her inability to show remorse or empathy for the suffering she has inflicted. She was able to dupe the criminal justice system into believing that her cons were simply contractual disputes, civil matters, not crime.
Look at it on face value, you would think this is a civil case. But you dig deep, you'll realize that this can never be a civil case.
To pursue a civil case, her victims would have had to hire private lawyers at considerable cost, which many could not afford. Furthermore, Morrison had boasted not only of her fake FBI credentials, but of her police connections. And her lies had larger implications for law enforcement.
From the onset, I could say we're going to have challenges. If you may remember from the docket, what struck me when I opened the docket was the involvement of FBI. That is that Ms. Morrison had paraded or shown this FBI badge in her possession. And we had a letter from the embassy of the US, obviously confirming that they don't know Ms. Tracy Morrison, and further registering their concern and interest that these allegations should be investigated.
Attorney Oscar Murovi is with the NPA's Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit. From 2013, he prosecuted Morrison on multiple fraud charges dating back to 2007.
Their concern was founded because it affects the relations between countries. It affects the relations between enforcement agencies.
Murovi worked closely with Captain Joel Ngobeni, now retired but formerly with the Hawks. In 2005, Captain Ngobeni was first alerted by several victims to Morrison's criminality. He also made the shocking discovery that she was not working alone.
Tracy Morrison is working hand in hand with the police officials, more especially Senten SAPS.
The 2007 case against Tracy Morrison and finally her conviction on multiple fraud charges in November 2019 represents a victory for the criminal justice system.
She was not your ordinary criminal. It showed when it came to the modus operandi that if received ordinarily by any person, it will be perceived or looked at as a civil matter. It is part of the joy of having the establishment of the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court, because those magistrates are so experienced and so exposed to commercial matters.
The marathon trial tied together all the threads of Morrison's crimes, from fraud on a grand scale to impersonating a police officer. It also linked her to other alleged crimes for which she has not yet been charged, and it provided incriminating evidence against former police officers who belonged to the Sandton Police Station's elite tracing task team at the time.
I decided to conduct a search. Maybe I'll be able to get something or evidence about the allegation laid by these people. I thought it was her house, only to find that she was renting. At the search, we confiscated a lot of stuff, bulletproofs, handcuffs, and the bulletproofs belongs to some of the police officers.
There were several complainants, but the main one was Mitch McAllister, the owner of PPE Technologies. PPE's head office is in Nelspruit. Over several years, Morrison defrauded PPE out of 1.7 million rand.
Tracy Morrison was referred to me by my sister Cecily, and that was around about January 2005.
As we explained in a previous episode, McAllister's sister had been befriended by Morrison in 2000.
Tracy's way of operating was to befriend you immediately, invite you to her house, and she draws you in like that. She always had plenty of money. There I had a couple of rough patches and took me to the bedroom, and there was wads in the cupboard and took me a couple of thousand, gave it to me. It's not a loan, it's a gift.
I'd been in the United States, my wife and I, on business, and I would become very ill with malaria that was undiagnosed. And it was in that period that our financial manager found that there was some petty cash fraud going on in our business. And we had reported that to the SAP, and nothing seemed to be happening. Cecily said, "Oh, wow, she has a friend who deals with the police and the Department of Justice, and this lady seems to work wonders, and could she refer her to us?"
We figured that she was really helping him. We're pretty ignorant. He was as well.
She wouldn't be taking any payment for herself through the process, and there would be costs and dispersable expenses for the investigating team.
Several years and 1.7 million rand later, there were still no results.
You doubt yourself and you wonder how you could be so stupid, so ignorant, so easily duped.
When he stopped paying, she approached me and she said, he stopped paying, and that's really silly because he's going to lose everything, because this is all going into a trust fund, which once the case is finalized, he gets the percentage back. And then when he really did stop paying, she said to me, "I think your brother thinks that I'm taking him for a ride." And she looked me in my eyes and she said, "But I would never do that to him. He's your brother and you are my best friend."
Morrison's modus operandi was ingenious.
She didn't have a bank account because she hadn't got her citizenship here sorted, so she couldn't open a bank account apparently.
I did a search and I noticed that. Tracy Morrison, do you have a bank account with Nedbank?
In fact, the South African born and bred Morrison holds at least 3 bank accounts that we know of at Nedbank, FNB and Capitec. All have refused to comment on Morrison's case, citing client confidentiality.
She would, at different times, approach different people and say, "I'm expecting this sum of money. It will come through. Can I please use your bank account?"
After the money received from PPE, they will withdraw the money and give it back to Tracy Morrison as cash.
There were 3 main accounts into which Morrison instructed PPE to deposit funds on a regular basis, like the account belonging to a Mr. Fratelli, indicated in yellow on the graphic. Morrison said he was a lawyer assisting her with the investigation.
So afterwards, I discovered that I think Mr. Fratelli was her landlord, and she was hiring a house from the landlord. So we were paying her rent to Mr. Fratelli, unbeknownst to us.
The second belonged to Heidi Polton, indicated in blue. She was one of Morrison's victims as well, and she was instructed to withdraw the money and pay Morrison in cash for bogus services. The third account, shown in red, belonged to Jerome McPherson, who at the time was a constable with the Sandton police station.
He said in his affidavit, when the money comes from PPE, she will call him confirming that the transaction came through, and then she's going to accompany him to go and withdraw that money.
Court documents reveal that between 2006 and 2008, PPE made over 150 deposits into Macpherson's account, and he withdrew close to R1 million, most of which was given to Morrison in cash for the fake PPE investigation.
Constable Macpherson was supposed to be charged.
Then I took a decision that based on the amount of money that flowed into his bank account from PPE company, I needed him. I needed him to prove a case against Ms. Morris.
After he gave an explanation, willing to testify against, we call it a Section 204, which means that he will be testifying against the main suspect.
Tracy Morrison's journey to jail has been a long and convoluted one. Although she was acquitted of fraud in the Randburg court in October 2019, a month later, in November, she was convicted of fraud for the 2007 case and sentenced in November 2020 to 6 years in the Johannesburg Women's Prison. The trial was dogged by delays.
The delays we had at that point was Ms. Morrison kept on hiring and firing legal representatives. So she will change attorneys. She will come next time and say, I don't have money to pay that one. And the attorney will remove himself from the case. Next time she will say, I will then apply for legal aid. Then come time that legal aid is given to her for the matter to proceed, she'll say, no, I don't need legal aid. I'll get a new attorney. So that dragged on until at some stage a magistrate says the bar stops here. Is either you conduct your own defense or you get somebody who will come in and finalize this case.
I went to court 5 times. Mitch came up 3 or 4 times before we actually got around to giving evidence.
Well, we thought the case was going nowhere as well. And I must take my hat off to Captain Ngabeni and his team.
Murovi's diligent prosecution also helped restore their faith in the justice system.
She cried. That's when she realized that the game was up in court. She could not answer most of the questions that we posed to her.
When the prosecutor phoned me, he told me it was 6 years sentence and that she was marched from court directly to jail. And that's what went through my mind, you know. Go to jail, go directly to jail, do not connect 200 and do not pass go. Anybody else in this situation? Let the legal system work and help the legal system work. It might take a long time, it might be frustrating.
At times, the trial resembled a thriller.
Someone wanted to buy a docket, a case docket. But what I did, I managed to organize another docket, duplicate docket, and set up an entrapment to hand over the docket for the transaction to go through. And that entrapment was so successful because the money came in. I've used another source to hand over the docket, and it's where the money came out, and then the person was arrested at the same time and was convicted and then was fined. Because the source mentioned that it's one of the Tracy Morrison's friends.
Are there more charges pending against Morrison?
There might be dockets laying around somewhere because the impression I got was that there are more victims.
And what exactly was the relationship between Morrison and the police officers belonging to the tracing task unit at Sandton Police Station? We know from Morrison's FBI scam at the global company called Cummins in 2005 that on her instructions, Sandton Police falsely arrested several Cummins employees who were later released without being charged.
it was so difficult to get the right person. I think some of the members involved from Cummins were no longer there.
In 2018, Special Assignment had alerted the Provincial Commissioner of alleged corruption at Sandton Police Station. A task team was mandated to take affidavits from former Cummins employees, but to date there have been no further developments.
It just amazes me that she has been operating for so long and she gets away with everything. There is really something sinister somewhere about her connections or whatever the case may be.
Even more sinister, during this time, Morrison also took custody of a 6-year-old little girl who was caught in her parents' bitter divorce battle.
They called Tracy in because the child was born in America and they had needed somebody, and of course with her FBI contacts that she'd spread around everywhere, they supposedly called her in. Tracy took control of the child and actually told her to call her mommy.
Fortunately, the little girl's father rescued her from Morrison's clutches. He gave harrowing evidence of how Morrison tricked him into handing the child over to her at Sandton Police Station. He even named the police officers who allegedly colluded in this cruel scam. And we have a recording of a telephone call Morrison made to the father.
I'm at Sandton Police Station.
Sandton.
I'll see you in the charge office at Sandton Police Station at 4 o'clock.
At the Sandton Police Station, I walk in to be met by this woman, Tracy Morrison, who's wearing an FBI badge on her shirt pocket. She was sitting in the charge office, behind one of those booths.
I even went to some of the police officers to get statements from them. They were scared. I don't know why, or they were scared of the involvement of the other colleagues, I don't know.
She entertained them at her place. After work, she would have them over for drinks. She would, on weekends, have them over for social gatherings, as I grew to understand.
I was always invited to the parties, but I would only go for an hour or two because they got very wild and carried away. If it was a braai or she catered, eat and give it half an hour and say, okay, I'm going home now.
In later years, the strip shows would continue at luxury homes she pretended to own, but was in fact renting while pocketing the rental from her housemates.
I took it all at face value and I just cruised in. I believed, she's got a boyfriend who's in the police, and and it's quite handy to have police your friends in the police.
While she also allegedly had some officers in her pocket, she definitely had one cop in her bed, Inspector Bruce McIntosh, formerly senior member of Sandton's tracing task team and widely regarded as a hero cop.
Yes, I did. Patient McIntosh, he didn't cooperate. He said there's nothing wrong with that. He didn't put it clearly. Their affairs between themselves.
In 2018, Inspector McIntosh said he regretted the affair and denied any knowledge of Morrison's crimes. He has since refused to comment any further. Despite repeated attempts to contact McPherson, he did not respond to our requests for an interview.
If there is sufficient evidence, they can still be charged.
Miss Morrison has never been out of the country.
She hasn't.
Never. We obtained evidence from the Department of Home Affairs with her movement control.
But estranged family members insist that Morrison did live there for a while. With a criminal conviction dating back to the 1980s, could she possibly have travelled on a fake passport? This too requires further investigation. I wanted to pay Tracy Morrison a visit in prison, but due to COVID restrictions, I was prohibited from doing so. If I'd been able to, I would have asked, why would a woman of her talent and her ability use all her potential to such destructive ends? Was she so afraid of being a real nobody that she scripted her life into becoming a fake somebody? She certainly got more than 15 minutes of fame, but the ending to her script was not what she planned.